Does playing Project Zomboid ever seem to get dull to you? Even after modding the game beyond recognition, does it still feel like there's something missing? I myself have had this thought many times, unfortunately, and I can't help but wonder, what is Project Zomboid lacking that would turn it into the otherwise addicting, engaging game which you always want to go back to that we all know it can be? And no, I'm not talking about NPCs.
For some reason, get the feeling that this is not going to last that long. No! Ah!
While I know there must be dozens of ideas out there that people believe would have a game-changing and positive effect like NPCs, there is one thing that stands out to me. Project Zomboid needs procedural world generation. This thought came to me when I was trying to figure out why I've been getting so bored of playing the game lately. And I realized that it's probably because you can only really explore a map so many times before the gameplay gets repetitive. Think about it. Playing in the same map over and over again makes it so that you start developing a quote-unquote meta for yourself in your playthroughs, meaning you make sure to stop by and loot the same places every time, use the same base location, and pretty much just have everything figured out for yourself right from the beginning of the game, as long as you know how to stay alive. However, if you spawned in a completely fresh and unexplored town each time you created a new world, you would feel much more inclined to explore and loot around because you won't actually know what's inside all the buildings you find, and you won't have all the spots to get certain things you need memorized. This would create a more dynamic experience to playing Project Zomboid, where you'll actually be forced to seek out the things you need rather than already knowing where they are. Not to mention, of course, the fact that no two bases would ever be the same in any of your playthroughs. Procedurally generated towns would also, of course, mean procedurally generated wilderness. Imagine what this would be like. Exploring the wilderness would become a risky yet exciting adventure. Who knows what kind of generated structures you'd run into out there? From abandoned cabins to secret bunkers which only you have ever seen, this would only further add intrigue to the game's exploration and survival. To go along with this, what if the Project Zomboid devs also created new types of biomes, such as a desert or a taiga, to change things up a bit? For instance, if the world you spawned in was a taiga or cold region, you would get to experience what it's like to try and survive the cold weather on top of your usual zombie survival, which is something most players don't ever get to experience, as the winter months do not occur in the vanilla game for about 4 or 5 months, which is far longer than the average player survives in a typical run. And opposite of that, if your world happens to be a desert, you'll get to deal with extreme heat, which is definitely something that's usually not in the game. The way these biomes could work is either your entire map would be one of the various biomes, which could be random or at the player's choice, or they could even try and make the randomly generated worlds contain all of the biomes, kind of like Minecraft. But I think doing this would also definitely take away from the realism. Now, all of this isn't to say that I don't understand and appreciate why Project Zomboid has its pre-made map of Kentucky. Other than the amazing work the devs have done creating the map, it also makes sense from a realism standpoint that the characters we play as in Project Zomboid would be locals and have a somewhat decent idea on their surroundings and what kinds of things they can find where. Maybe this specific reason is why procedurally generated maps just might not fit the vision they have for the game. If this is the case, another solution I can think of is if the devs were to start working on new maps just like the one we already know and love, but taking place in different regions so we can at least have a few options to choose from. At least then, there would be enough content to keep us busy exploring for quite some time. They could even just throw in the randomly generated worlds as a fun side experiment, since it's probably a little too unrealistic to be the game's default mode. What do you guys think about all this? Do you think having procedurally generated worlds in Project Zomboid would be a good idea? And would it make you inclined to play more often? I know there's definitely some major pros and cons to this idea, so I'd love to hear what the community thinks. Also, I know that adding all of these things would take a ton of work to accomplish on top of all the work they've already been doing for the game right now, with Build 42 being unstable. So I know it really isn't a reasonable thing to expect from the developers anytime soon. This was mostly just a fun idea to think about and discuss, but I would still very much love to have procedurally generated worlds in Project Zomboid. I truly believe that even implementing it simply as a side option would have a hugely positive impact on the game. Thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you again soon.